I came down and was chatting with Martin about the annexation.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Town of Superior Board of Trustees work session for December 14th, 2015.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we've scheduled a review of three landscape design concepts for an area in the town center development. The buffer area that these concepts have been designed for is at the southern edge of the town center development. It's about a 24-acre piece of property that is buffers the existing Rock Creek subdivision. The buffer area in the planned development for the town center was always envisioned for a natural open space area, and it was always envisioned to have landscape improvements of some degree within that area. We're looking at tonight is three designs that Loris, landscape architects and engineers, have put together for the board's review, with hope to get some direction from the board so that we can proceed to a final development plan that we can then implement the improvements through construction. The only area that it's a 24-acre piece of property, but we're looking about 500 linear feet within that 24 acres. But it it'll set the tone for the additional buffer area as the project develops in the future. So with that, I'd like to introduce Scott Belanger with Loris.
Hey, Matt,
go over the.
Can you real quickly? Do you have one of the laser pointers? Can you just point the area
Scott.
of the buffer area that?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the buffer is basically right
sorry?
here.
Oh yeah, Shannon will get the light.
So the buffer area stops at the red light. It doesn't go all the way to McCaslin. It just
Oh,
stops.
McCaslin is over here.
Right.
Yes. I know.
I think I have one here. So this area from here to here is
Yes.
part of the Awida property, which the Discovery Office Park is part of.
Okay.
It is designated as open space as well, but this will be part of a final development plan that comes forward with this.
Okay.
But we'll coordinate this property with this property.
So the 200-foot buffer and the 50-foot buffer start just where that,
Right
and then
here.
go that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
good.
then head
Thanks.
east.
All the way to 36.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, just point of clarification for the audience as well. We're going to have this presentation. We'll probably have some dialogue with the board. And then if we have the opportunity for public comment during the work session, we will allow for that. If we do not, if we come up close to 7 o'clock, you're welcome to stay on and give public comment at the regular meeting, which will be in the 7:15 time frame. And welcome to the scouts that are here this evening.
All right.
ahead. Thank you.
Again, Scott Belanger with Loris and Associates, and I'm here with Chris Muir, who did actually most of the work on this. So we're an engineering firm based in Louisville. We've worked with you previously on the new trails that were built 2 years ago or so out at the El Dorado School. We did design work for the trail connection at Rock Creek Parkway and the I can't remember the name of it now, the Meadowlark Trail that used to be called the Rock Creek Trail Phase 2. So we've worked with you in the past, and I'm excited to let you know that our office is actually moving to Superior in January. So we're going to be moving in up above Old Chicago. So we'll soon be a Town of Superior company. So we've been asked to look at 3 designs for treatment of this area. I think that we're all fairly oriented with what's, the basic design area. McCaslin is over here, Superior Town Center up there, and we've got this 50-foot easement, 200-foot buffer, and then another 50-foot easement in there. So as you're probably familiar, this area has all been graded out. The bottom of the slope is here, top of the slope is up there. And we were asked to come up with conceptual designs for 3 different treatments to enhance the aesthetics of that area, and then also to plan for a trail connection to go through this area. So we've got 3 basic options, and we'll talk about that, and we're looking for feedback of what you like and don't like about any of the 3. So with that in mind, I'll move on to the next, to our option number 1. Now, the primary component of our option number 1 is that we're using small rock and boulder retaining walls kind of scattered throughout the hillside to break it up and to create both pockets for plantings, trees and shrub plantings, and also to create more of a bench for the trail to go through the area. One of the nice features of this option is it also, the trail is not at the toe of slope, it's up, partway up the slope, and that improves the connections at both ends because we don't have to climb out of that depression as much. We're higher throughout. I can show you the next 2 drawings show what this looks like. So these are cross sections. This is existing bottom of the grade, top of the grade, and the buffer, the 200-foot buffer actually, would be out there. So we're still focused on the north end of the buffer, and this shows various locations along the length of it where we have the trail. It starts out, towards the top and then gets lower towards the middle and back up again at the other end. Boulder and rock retaining walls, pockets for plantings. This is of the 3. Yeah, feel free to ask questions.
Yeah,
up here.
if you could go back, you see where you show section 8A and BB.
Right. Yep.
Next slide, you'd have a CCD.
Right. Yep.
As you go across this, I see AA, BB, CC, DD.
Right.
So those are just cross sections of option
Right.
1.
Right. Exactly.
In
These are all
spots.
option 1, and so this is. So when we go to here, thanks for asking that question. I should have clarified that. So these are sections looking this way. So at this location, this is what that looks like, where we have top of slope, trail, retaining walls, plantings, bottom of slope. Moving on, so then the next one is towards the center. You see the trail now has gotten lower on the hillside. Similar configuration with boulder, rock walls, plantings, and whatnot. And then, CC, DD are here, and again, lower on the overall slope. Combinations of walls and plantings throughout. So this is, yep.
I don't understand, though, why you're not showing the landscaping for the full 250-foot buffer. You're only showing landscaping in the center of the buffer on the slope, but nothing starting at the southernmost portion of it, at the edge of the property here, right there, and going to the end of the northernmost point at the edge of the 50-foot section of the buffer.
Right.
You're only showing landscaping in the center of this on the existing slope. But the question, I think, was to how to restore the grading and elevation that's been taken out, and to also landscape that to have it come together more effectively across the whole 250
Okay.
feet. So I'm kind of lost here as to why there's only a plan for the center of the 250-foot buffer.
Well, we will see the other options. You'll see like option 3 where we're using a larger wall and restoring more of the existing grade. Certainly, if we wanted to expand plantings further into this area, that certainly could be done. At this point, I believe our direction was to kind of focus, stay further away from where the housing is now, and we were focusing our effort on the slope itself. So that's great input if that's the general consensus here. That's why we're here. This is our step 1 in this process. So I guess what I'm hearing is you'd like to see
Well,
more plantings in
the
this.
expectation, I guess, that we had was that we would look at restoration to some degree of the dirt that was taken out,
Right.
not per an approved grading plan, but, through incorrectly taking out.
Okay.
Wasn't per the approved grading
Right.
plan. This doesn't replace any of the elevation in this concept
No,
right
it
here.
doesn't. This
No.
option basically dresses up what we have there. We're looking at minimizing the amount of bringing dirt back or whatever. And, so I guess our question would be, is it really an improvement, or is it a better thing to do to bring all that dirt back, or are we better off focusing on best treating what we've got there? And again, we'll see in option 3 a scenario where we're bringing a lot of dirt back in.
Okay, one other question I have about this. It looks like up in the top right corner there, you're actually outside of the buffer and you're showing landscaping and trails outside into Super Lot 4. So I think maybe the developer might have a concern or a question about that, but you've gone outside of the 250-foot buffer with some of that planting in the trail. So,
If we choose any of these to move forward, we'll be looking a lot more closely at all those details and how, at this point, we were most focused on what's the best way to make up the difference in grade between here and get over into this area. But, if this is an issue, there's a way around that.
okay, all right.
Is there any more questions on this option? Should we move on to 2? So, this still is option 1, and the comparison, the thing to think about between this one and option 2 is that option 2 is actually moving even less dirt. So this here right now is the grade that's out there. So we are bringing dirt back in pockets, just not in the mass volumes to restore it back to the previous one. Option 3 will more satisfy what you're talking about.
But again, you're only doing it on a portion of the buffer.
It's all on the,
Yeah,
right,
it's
it's on
not
the
throughout the
sloped
buffer.
area, not on the area that's flat and basically.
And at the other end, the northernmost portion of it as
Right,
well.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this is option 2. This is where we're using much less walls. We're really only using walls at the ends to make up the grade, to get the connections to the future planned trails on either side. We're down at the bottom of slope as it exists now in this option, and we're just using pockets of boulders and plantings in this area. So we're really, in this case, grades stay mostly what they are out there now, and we're treating the slope with plantings and some boulders. So looking at it in section, so just remember, here's the 2 spots that we're going to show in section. And that's what this looks like. Trail down below at the bottom of slope, grades basically as they are, plantings, some boulders and selected areas. And we can go back to any of these. I'll just move on to option 3 here now. So option 3, this is where we bring a lot of material back in. So this has got a retaining wall. I mean, we're talking about over 20 feet of material that's been taken out of there. So to restore it back, we're talking about a retaining wall and bringing in more than 20 feet of material back into it. So if you look at our example photos over here, this is, that's probably a little bit taller than a 20-foot wall, but that's the scale of structure that we're talking about to do that. Again, trail is down at the toe of that where, we were told there wasn't much of an interest in having it up at the elevation of these houses to keep it down below. So in section, this is the current grade out there now. This is, an approximation of what the grade was like before that, before this material was taken out. And to keep this basically as it is now, that's the scale of walls that we're talking about.
What's the difference between the yin and yang, the gray and white up there, coloration behind the wall?
There is nothing.
That's just.
Yeah, that doesn't.
That's, you're just kind
Yeah,
of
it's just
aesthetically pleasing.
Right, well, and to just show that, keep in mind, we're looking at this in cross-section, so that doesn't really represent anything.
Okay.
Question.
Yep.
How did you decide on the placement of the north wall there? Shouldn't it be,
Where this-
shouldn't it be closer to the people? If we were going to restore it back to where it was before grading started?
So you're saying that this should be
How many
all
feet?
the way out here?
Well, how many feet into the buffer is your rock wall?
Okay, so let's see. Here's the buffer, right? Wait, is that?
No, it goes all the way up to
Oh,
the,
this is,
there.
no, to the next one up.
Yeah,
to
black
the-
line, black
the-
dash line.
That one, there.
That's-
That's the buffer.
That's the 50-foot
that's the
buffer.
50-foot, and then that's the 50-foot easement.
No, it's a 50-foot buffer. It's a 50-foot portion of the buffer, and then the 200 portion is
Okay,
this.
that's the
there.
200-foot
Yeah.
portion. So, okay, so we've got the
This is
200,
an easement down
and then
here.
the 50, and our wall is right there. And this is 10 feet wide, so that's like 15 to 20 feet from that line.
So
And
how
that
did you
to-
decide where to place the tall rock wall?
How did we decide where?
If you don't mind coming up to the mic when you talk, thanks.
There was a graded swale that's already graded out there, so to just keep that to help with material movement, we just decided to put it up the wall a ways to maintain.
So we were maintaining that too. If this is something that this option is decided that's what we want to pursue, we can move that wall wherever we want it to be. It's only going to make it taller.
Ely has a question.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, there's been a lot of speculation both in the media and in the community about the potential costs. And do you have any idea about these three different options?
we do, yeah. So, and keep in mind that, this design
Right.
is very conceptual and certainly the numbers are rough, and we would have the ability to also modify the design and take it in whatever direction you wanted to go.
Yeah, just
But-
rough estimates. I won't
Right,
hold you to
so,
it.
so our option one is on the order of 600,000. Okay, so we could take out plantings and whatnot and reduce walls and reduce that cost, but that's, what you see here, our estimate of exactly what you see here is that, on that order.
Okay.
Option two is in the order of 400,000, so it's certainly a less expensive option. And then our 20-plus foot retaining wall option, and this was, well, our estimate is based on a natural stone facade on this thing, so it's not a completely, commercial concrete type of thing. But this is, you're talking about in order of magnitude of like 1.7 million for that size of wall for that area.
So Sandy took my question. I was going to ask why you placed the wall where you placed it. So with this 1.7 million, is it the construction of the wall, or is it the replacement of the dirt that's costing us much?
Well, it's both. I mean, the dirt is probably 200,000 of that cost. Just the stone facade is 300,000 or more. You know, so if you wanted to build the wall and do it as cheaply as possible, there are certainly ways to get that number down.
So
The wall itself is shy of a million. It, you know, represents almost $1 million in the estimates.
So what if we were to take this gradation that you have here and bring it slightly down and sloping all the way down to the bottom here?
Right. Well, so
without a wall, what would that entail?
okay, so
I mean, you've got a 90-degree angle there.
So,
where your
okay,
your
where do you
bluff
want
component
the
of bluff
slope to
is-
start?
Why not take a nice gradation, give me a pointer, and so why don't you take this and take it through here, a nice little slope down, and not have to do some gigantic wall? Why is that not an option?
That could be an option. So there's certainly no reason that.
So-
I guess I don't know what the limitations are, and what is there some point where we can't add fill out here? That I'm not sure about, but certainly.
We're looking at the options of
Right.
what would be a reasonable way to reach resolution of restoring the buffer to some extent that makes sense again. So I want to go back to option one and taking up from where Deb was. If we look at option one, let's stay there for a
Okay.
minute. If we look at option one, you're only looking at terracing on the slope itself. But
Right.
if you did like what Deb was saying, and this is what I had looked at too, if you move this out to the, all the way, so where the bike trail is now, put that in the 50 feet where it's supposed to be,
Okay.
over there. So you kind of extend this,
Just
just
take
drag it
everything and
out,
slide it
drag
down.
everything that way.
Yeah.
So you'll be putting some fill up at the top, but you'll be doing that more of a slope that makes some sense, and then you'll have the terraces out here toward the end of the in the
Okay.
50 feet pretty much of the 250-foot buffer. That's what I was expecting, I guess, when we said we were going to have a concept that included the possibility of terracing and the trail in the 50 feet of the 250-foot buffer. So to see this option where you're basically just landscaping the slope that's there isn't a restoration of the buffer to any extent. And we also don't see a plan for the landscaping of the buffer. We're just seeing a landscaping plan for the slope.
Right.
And so those two pieces are really missing for me.
Okay.
The fact that we're not looking at the entire 250-foot buffer, both for landscaping and also the potential for restoration of some of the elevation that was inappropriately taken out of there. So again, if we're thinking about what Deb was just saying, I had thought of that too, that I thought that the terracing one would be the one I'd like. Well, I like it except for the fact you don't cover the whole buffer. You're only, go back to the next page, please, page 3. You're only putting it in the middle, and both the top, which would be on the right side, isn't landscaped or shown, and the bottom, which is on the left side, you've got 75 feet on both sides that nothing's happening to it.
Okay.
And that's not a solution to the dilemma that we have, the conundrum that we're faced.
Would you
With.
be happy with something that was similar to this, but just expanded the plantings into the areas that we're not currently showing? Or what are you hoping to achieve by moving the fill, basically taking all this and sliding it? And I'm just asking
Extending
that
the
question.
buffer, using the whole extent of the buffer, the whole 250 feet as a buffer.
I think the operative word here is restoration, not landscaping.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And we're looking at a landscape plan, and we were hoping to see a restoration plan.
Well, that's not what we asked for, though. We asked for options that included moving dirt back, but also leaving it the way it is and landscaping that, putting trees and natural vegetation in there. That's what we asked. So a degree of options is what we asked for, and that's kind of what we saw or what we see.
But this
Deb-
one doesn't cover the whole buffer
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
Chris.
I
It
get it.
doesn't,
I
it
understand.
doesn't show the whole buffer.
I understand.
It's missing that piece.
Okay.
If it was showing that whole piece, if this showed the entire buffer,
Yeah.
it would be closer to what we were asking
Okay.
for and what I was
So
expecting to see.
what I heard Deb say, it sounded like it's closer to option 2 is what she's asking about. Because there's no, if you go down to option 2, there's no retaining walls in there. So can you can see what the slope is now. Can you do what Deb's asking about and maybe adding the grading to that? Because that's what you're saying, Deb, is don't have any retaining walls there, just actually add more dirt to kind of lessen that slope there.
Well, and is that swale absolutely necessary, or can it be dealt with in some, I mean, can everything work with that swale gone and less of a sharp angle there at the bottom?
We can look at getting rid of the swale.
So
I guess
The
we hadn't
swale-
contemplated bringing in that much fill and expanding it that far. Anything can be done, that's why we're here, is to find out what,
So,
get
to
more
continue my
clarification of
question,
what
when
we
you
want done.
started planning these different options here, you obviously have considered what kind of vegetation would go in there and perhaps some trees and all that. So, would you should we assume that you take the same vegetation that you'd have on the slope there and extend that into the rest of the 200-foot buffer? I mean, did you consider that, or did you consider any kind of vegetation at all in the rest of that 200-foot buffer?
We were really focused on dealing with the slope versus the whole buffer.
Okay. And then the trees that you have, have you considered how many trees would go in there?
Yes.
And so you-
Yeah, I mean, when we have our estimate, it counts up all of the trees
Okay.
that are shown in here, and if we want to double it and have it out here, that's no reason we couldn't do that.
Okay, when you do a restoration such as this, what age of the trees, or how big would the trees be? What kind of trees do you consider to go in there?
Well,
Would they just be a year old, or would you get some
I
trees
mean,
that
I would
are?
envision a lot of these would be like 3-inch caliper, 3-inch caliper trees that are going to be. They're certainly, and that too. I mean, it's all a matter of cost. How much we can put in bigger trees, they cost more, and it's a matter of just establishing what those parameters are and a budget for it, and then.
Yeah. And what kind of trees have you considered?
At this stage, we just kept it conceptual with shapes and the definition of the space itself, and didn't look at.
I'm not able to hear.
I'm sorry. We just looked at I guess defining the space itself, and we didn't actually pick out species yet, and we haven't gotten that far. That would probably be the next iteration.
Okay.
And I think this could be a work in progress. We don't have to, fully landscape it with all the trees that we hope to ever have in it. We can take our time and do this in phases. It doesn't have to be, right out of the chute, this incredibly gorgeous landscaped buffer, because it never was before.
That's right.
I'd like to echo that, because when you look at, as you go across and the land gets higher, trees aren't necessarily wanted on the high ground, because that trees are a view killer for people that care about the views they have. So let's not get too far into the woods of tonight of landscaping the whole buffer and with trees and everything till we have a good idea of everything, and focus more on this cutout thing and see what we want to do to restore that as best we can, or get something that's acceptable to everybody.
I think the most important thing tonight is to get the definition of the project correct.
Right.
And I did not ever anticipate receiving a landscaping plan of incorrectly moved tons of soil. I expected to see a restoration plan that was acceptable to the parties involved, which include the town board, and it includes the community affected, with appropriate landscaping as both defined in the PD and as necessary to stabilize that replaced soil. Because of course, replaced soil is never going to be as compacted and as you know what I mean, as compacted as soil that's never been touched. So I just want to put forth my definition of the project, which is an acceptable restoration plan with appropriate landscaping to achieve the goals of the project.
Maybe, should we ask for some, can we get some resident feedback now? Is this the time?
Well, are we good with, I mean, are we good with the board discussion and presentation to this point?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we would need more
Yeah.
clarification on
Yeah.
what we view as an acceptable restoration plan.
Yeah, there's three
Well, we-
very
What does that-
different plans that.
Yeah.
Well, I think
What-
though that
And I
what
think
we're
there's gonna be some disagreement on what may be the best option there.
And I think we do want to leave this meeting with giving them some clearer
Yes.
direction on
Absolutely.
where we go from here. So,
But and it might
Yep.
not be before 6, 7 o'clock. It might, you know, because we need to hear from the residents and then have another discussion about it perhaps amongst us. So I think we're not ready to say yet what, based on, you know, all the feedback, all the input that we need to
we've
get.
started, I mean, individual board members have started kind of giving their ideas on what, you know, what variations they would like to see on this, and so maybe we can expand that a little bit further. I do want to take public comment, and if we need to continue this into the regular meeting, at the end of the regular meeting for our discussion and for giving them final direction, we'll do that, but
Okay, let me just say again, let's go back to option 1. I'm sorry, yes, option 1, right there. Look at that. If I was looking at a cross-section of that area that was cut out and all the dirt was removed,
So that would be,
that was, yeah, it was all the way up there with a slight slope, all the way out to the end. You don't see the north on this,
Right.
yeah,
It
it's
was
right
beyond,
there.
I'm not familiar with exactly what the grade was. So you're saying that it was
Yeah.
that high?
It was
all the way
high all
up?
the way
Yeah.
across,
Okay.
from up there at the top all the way across. Oh, I know, that's a lot of dirt that's been taken out. But to just not see any dirt replaced, because this doesn't really replace
No,
anything.
right,
What I-
right. It's very minimal.
Very minimal.
Yeah.
So I could envision where you actually take this center section and slide it over to this left-hand side. And where your tall trees are at the top up there, you bring that out.
All right, so that.
So that would come out to there, and then all of the downward slope and the terracing and stuff would happen on this half of the page. That, to me, would be an option that I would like to see. And
so
with the,
your
with the.
goal-
I'm
Your
sorry?
goal in doing that is that you just want to see a flatter area up high,
Well.
a wider, flat
Why,
area.
yeah, because right now it's like this, and then it drops off like this. Yeah, and it was supposed to be 200 feet, and then the 50 feet is where the trail was. That was the expectation of a lot of people. So this, if you just slide it out, move it over here, I would like to see what that kind of a view would look like, and landscaped across the whole 250 feet. Not just the center section here that you have here. But again, I think that's a good point, not to get hung up on what the landscaping looks like as much as where the restoration happens. And what will it look like, what will the buffer look like from the residences that the buffer is supposed to be buffering?
Right.
Not what it looks like from down here, but what will it look like from the residences? Where
No,
it
that's
was
good
meant to
input.
be.
Our goal here wasn't to come and have you pick something and walk away and say that we're done.
Mm-hmm.
That we created tools that would give you the opportunity to better tell all of us what you guys want, so hopefully that's what got.
okay.
Thank you.
I guess a far gentler slope. I think that's what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, we're not looking to skydive.
No. And a 20-foot wall doesn't seem very practical
No, that's-
in the long run for anybody.
that's a no.
Whether you're on this side of it,
Right.
dropping off of it,
Sure.
or you're this side looking into it. So the 20-foot wall is like, don't spend a lot of time on that, to my mind. It doesn't work.
Right.
We need to get back more to what it was before. It was kind of a gentle slope, not a steep slope, but a gentle slope and a natural kind of movement of the dirt there. And this, to me, like I said, if you moved it over and stretched that out, the top part where the tall trees are out, you'll get closer to what was envisioned.
Right. So would you like to see something that starts a total slope as far as we can to the north? And then tie it back into where, you know, just see how much dirt it would be to,
Not as far as you can. You need to work within the parameters of the PD, as
That's
far
what I-
as it was originally intended to go.
Mhm.
That's very specific in the PD. So starting there to the north and following the parameters to the south, those are your,
Right, right.
Does-
And
does
we
the
know we
PD
have a problem in that we have dug this out now. We've got it dug out. So how do we, it's kind of hard to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, but you can get something that might work. Well, no, I'm not saying that. We can get something that will work, not might. We can get something that will work. And right now, your focus needs to be not just on the piece that's cut out, the slope, but the entire buffer and how to make it more like it was before.
Matt, what is the maximum or minimum in the PD of the slope there?
Well, the code's 3-to-1.
Well, that's not the question, though, I don't think. What, is it?
I just want to understand, do we have, per the PD, do we have to be within certain parameters of the slope there? Or can it be like it is out there right now, or does it have to be completely flat? Or is there any direction that we have to adhere to there, as far as the slope goes of that area?
Well, it's 3-to-1 slope now, so it matches what's in the code and what's in the PD on the preliminary grading plan, but we don't have a final development plan. That's what we're working towards.
Okay.
It
it
doesn't
can
match
be-
the grading plan. I've got it right here.
It can be-
in the PD. But what
can
matches
be-
the grading plan and what matches the FDP 1, Phase 2, is not anywhere near this. It's filling it back up to there. But we know that that's a big, again, putting Humpty Dumpty back together is a huge task. But this is not putting anything back. This is not doing anything back to the way it was. So, and I've got the long sheets back here, anyway, let's look at them, that was approved. This isn't enough. This is not a restoration. This is a landscaping of the slope that's already there.
I think from this exercise, we've pretty decisively said that option 2, which is just landscaping what's out there now, the board doesn't seem real happy with that option, and then also the wall is not an option. So I think you're right. Building off of option 1 is really that's the direction we need to be focused on.
I'd like to see it with as minimal amount of walls, retaining walls as possible. So if that's down to no walls, that's ideal. But I'm not a big fan of having any kind of retaining walls there.
a compliment to your firm, the rock work you did in the El Dorado K8 across the street, the drainage way or whatever, was beautiful. And so I really advise anybody who's thinking of these as those prefab walls. It's a lot like by Key Bank, that great stone wall there. Positive, so I love that wall. So if it doesn't have to be a long
Right.
So
continuous
that's
expanse.
exactly what we're talking
So if
about.
it's
Right.
periodic here
Right.
and it's
That's
periodic
what we're showing
there.
here would be the same type
Right.
of wall as by Key Bank and by.
Right, and it doesn't have to be continuous. It depends on the lay of the land.
Right, completely.
And-
And that's what, so that's what you're seeing here are,
Areas.
right. areas to create pockets that are flatter to get the trail through and.
I
to,
actually think it could be beautiful.
Mhm.
And then a positive element that came out of your discussion was use of boulders. I mean, it was intended, and I can't stress this enough, a naturalized effect. What is disappointing to me as somebody who schlepped through that whole 2013 many meetings to come up with a compromise solution to the whole Superior Town Center, I never expected that large buffer to have been graded flat and all the soil, all the natural plantings up there disturbed. I didn't see it getting down to dirt. So to restore that natural effect, naturalized doesn't mean wild, just to be clear on what my it doesn't mean wild, but it means sort of an improved but still basically natural look, right? So a use of that rock, use of the boulders, a strategic use of bushes and plantings and trees. I agree with Joe. Get clear that some people are going to really scream if those trees are up too high. Does that give you are you able to picture
Yeah, I think
better?
I think that I am. I mean, I think that what we have here in option one is exactly what you're talking about. It's just a matter of how much dirt do you want? Do you want to have that minimize the cost of moving dirt around and spend more money on this type of stuff, or do you want to spend more money on dirt, or do you want to spend money on both things? I don't know what your budget is.
Frankly, I don't want to spend any money on moving dirt, but we must spend money on moving dirt because dirt was incorrectly taken away. So I'm sad about it. I'm frankly angry about it. But we've got to put dirt back, as well as do the landscaping that was in the original proposal.
Okay.
Can we have some comments from the community before
Sure.
7 o'clock? That's okay?
Sure. Are we good with board comments and questions at this point?
Like,
Okay, we'll take a
few
couple of
comments.
public comments and go from there. If you would come up and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Randy Goodson with RC Superior. Thank you very much for continuing to take the time to work with us to try to make the project as acceptable to the community as we can. A couple of things. It's sort of hard to ignore some of the comments and not be sort of seeming argumentative. But sometimes things are said so often that that sort of people take them as an absolute given from everybody's perspective. We all have our own perspectives. Will this get me? And one thing I want to point out is that in the approved PD plan, now, this is a two-dimensional black and white document, and so I know that there's an issue, and we are very, very aware that there is an issue. But there's been comments like we did something inappropriately, we did something incorrectly, we did things that we never said we were going to do, or things like that. And when there's an interpretation of these two-dimensional documents, sometimes, a lot of times, there is, people read these two-dimensional black and white documents differently. This is the PD plan SP 1.1. I was looking for a way to expand on this view here. Is there a way to print out? What I want to point out is that we, in response to a lot of dialogue about homes being built, over there, thank you. In response to a lot of dialogue about homes being built that might obstruct the views from the homes in the adjoining neighborhood, we had discussions about how to avoid that view obstruction. I remember one particular exchange here where I think it was with Trustee Sorelli, where he said, can I borrow a laser pointer? Remember Trustee Sorelli had commented, can we push back a row of homes or eliminate one more row of homes so that the residents here aren't looking at housing? And I made the point that we could eliminate the first row of homes, but then you're just going to see the next row of homes behind. And if you wanted to avoid seeing the homes, we'd have to push the grading down. And that we had a unique opportunity to push the grading down because, in fact, as you all know, we're grading part of 180 acres, and we were able to go back much, much farther away from the property and change the grade at great expense so that the homes on the boundary, while adhering to the same 250-foot buffer, separation distance, that those homes would not be, there was actually another discussion, I'm not sure who it was, I don't just have that recollection of the neighbors not wanting to look into the bedrooms of the homes next to them. And so we put together a plan where we gently, all the way back to Old Railway, 1 block south of Main Street, we started reducing the grade at that point so that when we got to the boundary, these homes would be depressed below the homes adjacent. Right in here, you can see this is the grading. This is the envelope. We owned all the property. We've committed to donate this 200 feet to the town for open space. This additional 50 feet that's referenced is it's just a building setback zone. It's the backyards of these homes here.
No, it isn't the backyards.
No, it is not. It's buffer. It's part of the buffer. It's
Okay.
part of the annexation agreement.
Well,
And that's been discussed many times at many public
Okay.
meetings, Randy.
So there's a couple of
It's very
things.
disingenuous of you to continue to say this. You talk about absolutes. You're doing the same thing. You're trying to over-talk us that know the facts here. There was never a discussion about dropping those houses down 50 feet, and we have a VSA, a view sensitive area analysis, that will keep those houses that are in any buildings built beyond the 250 feet at a lower level. They cannot be higher than the VSA allows. So there was never a discussion about dropping those homes down. And the 250 foot is 200 foot of natural wildlife buffer and 50 foot of setback, no improvement. That's a setback from the buffer, the natural wildlife buffer, which now, now there isn't a wildlife. There isn't wildlife there anymore. There's no wildlife there anymore.
So my effort is to explain that we have a set of documents that has been looked at differently, and just to
This is the only document that shows those lines in there. The grading plan does not show those lines in there. And I can show it to you right now. We can pull it up on there.
I'd love to see it, but again, just to
It's been approved without
you clearly
those
have a
lines.
perspective, and,
No, I don't have a
you're
perspective.
entitled
I
to your
have the
perspective.
facts.
I
The
have a
facts.
perspective also, and I'm sharing the perspective from written documents. Nowhere will you find in the documents that there's that this is not to be graded. Nowhere will you find 250 feet where there is to be no grading.
Right here, Randy.
The annexation agreement.
This is a PDF that was, FDP that was approved. It's not to be graded. That grading there,
So the
which it doesn't
the
even
PD
show
though.
grading, it's a drainage plan, I believe.
Well, again,
it
this is
doesn't show
clearly
it.
getting argumentative. I just want to express to the
Because
whole
you're
board
being
and to the
disingenuous.
residents that there are written documents that we have that are recorded documents, and we've just looked at them a different way, and we're here to figure out how do we bridge that gap, that we've looked at these documents a different way. And I just want to sort of have a good record that we have not come into this town and done things that we thought were inappropriate. There's been misunderstandings. There's been plans looked at differently. You may think that we did it with a bad intention.
I never said that, Randy.
Or whatever.
We never said that. We said that it was taken out inappropriate. Both sides, and I think that you were here at that public meeting when we talked about it. Both sides, our staff, at the town staff, and somewhere from your side, together we have come into a problem that we as a staff gave a grading permit to you to grade this out. Never was that presented to anybody on this board that I can find, or never was it approved to grade to this extent. This is a PD plan. This is a proposed, and what does it say there that it is?
This is the proposed grading.
Proposed grading
Proposed
plan
grading.
in the PD plan amendment, which is not the approved plan for grading. The approved plan was in this FDP that I have back here. That was approved by the town board, this town board, on August 25th of 2014. It was not this. It was what I have back here as the approved plan.
So
What
if
we have as a
I could
town-
just share our perspective, because I think it's good to have a foundation for, our perspective. I clearly understand your perspective. Our reading. I think it's great to have everyone's perspective. I'd like you to hear my perspective as you think about how we're going to work together to address your concerns. Because we know that you're not happy with what's there, but it's one thing if you think we did something with malice or to be sneaky or to be inappropriate. And it's another thing if you can look at documents and say, gee, I see how Ranch Capital might have thought about this area. I clearly have heard how the board and how staff and how a lot of residents have thought about this area. But I think it's important to have this foundation for how we got to where we are as we think about how we're going to get out from where we are.
And that's what we're doing here, is
hold on.
trying to get out
Hold
of
on a
this.
second.
We're trying to get out of this. And Randy, no one said that you did it wrong. I said it was done incorrectly, and I take responsibility as the town, for the town too, that we allowed, as a town, the staff, a grading permit that we should never allowed because it wasn't per the approved FDP. So it's not here to lay blame. What's here now is to say, how do we get back to something that was expected and that was already documented and approved in a 1998 annexation agreement, which you could have changed if you didn't like, but you chose to accept the 1998
We
annexation.
didn't need to change it.
Right.
We don't need to change it. We
Wait,
don't need to change it
Rita.
today.
Let-
We don't need to
Rita,
change it for
let's-
what's
So now
built.
we're
She's
here
had the
trying
floor
to
quite a
get
bit.
back to what that 1998.
It doesn't have to be changed for what's
Rita.
built at all.
Okay.
I'd like you to complete your thoughts, and I'd like to hear what plans we have forward.
May I say one thing before Randy? So I don't think we're here blaming you. I don't think you're blaming us either. So we've discussed ad nauseum over the last month or two about how there was a misunderstanding. So I think we need to move beyond that at this point. We've discussed it enough and say, where's the solution? And how can we come together? Joe said it best, last month when he said nobody on this board envisioned that this is what it would look like. So that actually pretty much captures it. So now, how can we restore it back to as close as we can to what it was before, and to do it in a manner that's agreeable to the folks that are here, the folks that live up in that neighborhood, to us as a board, to the town staff, and to you, and at some reasonable cost. So for me, I'm more interested in the solutions moving forward than going back and forth. To me, this is wasted time and energy, honestly. And I do want to hear from you guys, and our time is running out too. So,
And just sort of per the mayor's request to complete, our perspective of the situation we're in, our reading of the town code allows grading permits to be issued pursuant to the PD plan, and we believe we have a grading permit that was issued pursuant to the PD plan, and we have a whole different perspective on the FDPs, but I won't dwell on that at this point in time. We'd love to work with your landscapers, and look at different options, and it's really important to us when these options are implemented. There's no housing in that location right now. I understand that the town thinks there's a way for water to be extended to that area, but As you heard from your landscapers, we just got the plans, I think it was last Thursday, and we haven't met with your landscapers, but we'd like to work with your staff, with the town, with the landscapers, with our own landscaping firm, and come up with some options and then discuss them further.
And I just wanted to say, I have pictures before the buffer was taken away during the summer, before you did any excavating, and I'd be happy to send those off to you so that you guys have an idea what that slope looked like.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're at 5 to 7. We're not going to get to everybody's public comments, but you want to take one or two? Okay. Public comment? Come on up.
Evening, my name is Bill Leipold, and I live on Brandon Court in Waterford, the affected area. I have many thoughts and comments regarding things like erosion and the fact that all the trees that were planted on the open space are gone because they've all been blown away. But that's not what I came here to talk about. I came here to talk about the fact that it's a given that we've had long-standing codes in place in terms of what that area was supposed to look like, and that this is an egregious breach of that. That it can only be construed, in my mind, as willful that it happened. Okay, beyond the buffer zone, the developer is entitled to negotiate with you for whatever base height he wants or not. Okay, all we want is our buffer where it was and natural. I'm not interested in landscaping. Okay, that was supposed to be a natural buffer, and I want it returned to as close as possible to a natural buffer. And you know, everyone is unhappy about the fact that there's going to be a significant cost in this, but under the best of circumstances, Waterford residents are going to be taking a significant hit by virtue of this development being put in at all. Okay, and to have that further eroded is adding insult to injury. Properties in Waterford represent the benchmark for all the rest of Rock Creek. If those property values are depressed, then it's going to have a trickle-down impact to a certain degree on all the rest of Rock Creek. So I'm here to ask you to restore your integrity and restore our mandated buffer, purely and simply. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay, we're going to...
One more comment,
Yeah.
maybe.
We'll do one more, and then we're going to break for the regular meeting.
Hi, I'm Barry Remington. I live right behind here, so I probably see it more than anybody. But I don't know how we got here. We're here. We got to fix it with the least amount of money. It's my thought. But I think if you move the trail as far north as you can on the buffer zone, that would be good enough for me. I mean, you're going to look down there. We stand up there high enough. It's not going to be that big a deal. I don't want trees up the backside there. That'll just disturb my view. So the minimal cost, hopefully the developer will kick in on some of this. That's what I would hope. And not all put it on the town of Superior. But I'm seconding that first plan where you kind of slope it down and make it as natural as possible. I don't see a big need for a bunch of landscaping, that's for sure. The landscaping is actually for the people on the trail looking up.
Right.
So that's my 2 cents. Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Okay, we're gonna
have
break
7
for
o'clock.
our regular meeting. We got to start at 7 o'clock. We are going to have additional public comment at the regular meeting at 7:15. Do we have anything additional for the work session? Okay.
So public comment will probably be in about half an hour, 15 to half an
15
hour.
minutes.
So if you want to stay, please do, and bring your comments during that time.
Yep. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees for December 14th, 2015. Shannon, could we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Clint Folsom.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Williams.
Here.
Trustee Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Rita Dizelle.
Here.
Elia Gregorius.
Here.
Chris Hansen.
Here.
Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Magley. Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Harden.
Okay, thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda.
Can I say something about the agenda
Yes.
before we approve it? I don't want to pull anything, but I would like to ask that when we bring up contracts, that we, as a general rule, just start the discussion with, this was awarded on such and such a date, competitively or not competitively, this is the first, second, or third option. Just rotely, every single time we have, just something like that, and so we know where we are in the contract process. But I'm not asking to pull anything.
Okay.
And I'm asking to pull 11E unless I can just ask a couple questions now.
I would actually like it pulled.
All right, we're there.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay. Do we want to have follow-up discussion at the end of the meeting to kind of wrap comments about the buffer area?
Yes, let's add that to the, agenda.
But not public comments, we'll have them earlier.
We're going to have
them
public
early.
comments as soon as we're done with we'll have public comment at the regular time for public comment, but I'm just saying additional discussion where we can discuss anything
Where we're going.
from the public comment
Okay.
and then where we're going, and attempt to give staff and the engineer landscapers as clear direction as possible so we can keep moving this forward.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're going to add that on to the end. Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yes.
if we're going to have that additional discussion, has anyone let the developer know so that they can stay and also have that discussion? I just want to make sure that we really shouldn't have that discussion unless they're here, so I want to make
Okay.
sure we,
Have they left or do we?
I don't know. Okay, I'll go find out.
If someone can find that out and.
Well, there's some people there who raised their hand, so I think,
Pam?
yeah, the project
Pamela is
manager and
Project
Pam
manager.
are there, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, get a motion to approve the agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Williams, second by Trustee Pennington. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. All right, next is reports, questions, and issues, and Mayor Pro Tem Williams would like to start us off.
Yes. I have a couple things. First of all, I had a First Fridays last Friday, and I want to thank Rita Dozell and Sandy Pennington for taking over that meeting. I had another meeting I had to go to. So I appreciate that both of them led that discussion for the rest of the First Fridays. I attended the Count the Lights on the Fire Truck, which was really amazing. If you haven't seen it, you can go by on Marshall Road as you head to Target and Costco, and you can see the beautiful lights on the fire truck. It's very cute. And then I also attended a board retreat, and I would have to say that was one of our better retreats. We knocked out a lot of issues and material that we needed to cover, and then we set up, obviously earlier, but we set up regular retreats that we'll be doing in the future here very soon, so I'm happy about that. And then I have one other comment about the snow event we just had. And I was driving, it was a Saturday night, I don't know, about 9:30 or something. And someone was stuck on McCaslin up the wall before you get up to 128, Highway 128. And there was a sheriff, and they had to tow him. And I think that's the second time we've seen that. My daughter also rode the streets in Boulder, Louisville, and Superior that night, and she came home and most teenagers don't really notice these kind of things, and they never say anything. And my daughter came in the house just almost swearing. Well, she was swearing, I'll be honest. She was swearing, and she's like, what the heck? Boulder Street's great, Louisville streets are great, but Superior's are not, and why? And, you know, she's looking at her mom, who's a trustee, and I don't know the answer. And so I think at this point, whatever we're doing is not working. And I think we need to revisit what is happening. And I'm hoping that town staff can address this. But as I understand it, the town board asked that we reduce some of the materials and de-ice slicer, whatever, so that we weren't spending so much money. Now, there's a happy medium in all that. There's pulling it back too much, and there's obviously throwing out too much, and it's wasteful. So somewhere where we need to be in between, and I don't think we're in between yet. At this point, I think we're being incredibly skimpy on how much we're putting out there. And so I want to make sure of what we're doing consciously and discuss it. I also want to make sure that every Tier 1 street, which is McCaslin, Colton Road, Indiana, Torrey's Peak, and Rock Creek Parkway, are 100% covered with all the materials possible in every snow event. I want to make that very clear that I want to make sure that happens. I'm assuming that's happening, but I'm not seeing that as being the case because the person or the vehicle that was stuck this time was a Jeep. So I find that kind of hard to believe that they might have had bald tires or whatnot. I also have a brand new car with brand new Michelin tires, and I had a very difficult time getting up.
So I do have some information for you.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
So the contractor was called at 8:30 p.m. on Saturday evening, December 12th. He responded with 3 trucks, hit all priority 1 and 2 streets by 11:30 p.m. that night. 445 gallons of liquid de-ice were dropped, along with 2,600 pounds of ice slicer.
So did they cover, are they required to cover the entire?
We've also increased the amount of material he's dropping by, we doubled it since the last storm, prior to this one.
Okay, so are all the Tier 1 streets being 100% covered? There's like no spot they're not
Priority
covering?
1 and 2 streets. And depending on conditions, 3. And then the priority 4 streets are usually when we have 10 inches or more of snow.
So.
Did your daughter come home before 11:30?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that may explain it.
So, and we continue to work with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think what I'd like to see at this point is how much material has been put on or down last year, the year before, and the year before that, compared to what's being put down now.
I think that's in that document that we saw when we did the analysis of the.
No, that's in past years. I mean, right now.
Right.
Like, what have we done?
We should move on. I mean, we should. We can have some additional follow-up on this, but we need to.
Okay. I kind of want to get this resolved before there's another snow event.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, I.
Well, let's just stay here long enough. Maybe it'll start.
I'm going to comment in mine as
Please.
well. So
We can move on.
we'll go to Ely, and then we'll have more snow.
More snow. So,
More snow talk.
More snow just-
I also attended the town board retreat, and in my 10 years on the board, I agree that was probably the best retreat. Very well run, a lot of exchange of ideas and communication. I think we worked through a lot of issues, and the thought is that maybe we'll do this on a quarterly basis, maybe, and we don't let things accumulate as much as we have in the past. The Count the Lights event, this was the second year. Mayor, you did a great job once again. Very well attended, and I especially appreciate the Superior Youth Leadership Council showing up and volunteering their time. to serve their community, and they're very excited about this event. I met with them at the beginning of the month, so they were ready for that. They're also doing a Toys for Tots donation drive, and they're also designing potentially the new Superior flag. So I don't know if you guys have seen some of their designs yet. So I'll make sure at the next board meeting in January that we have, maybe the two finalists. And last but not least, this is more to you, Matt, and I don't know if Martin is here.
He's in his office.
He's in his office. I hope Martin can hear this. I appreciate his response to a member of our community, the way he responded and the professionalism that he showed in his email today. So make sure you pass that along to him. Thank you.
We had a very productive open space advisory committee meeting last week. The relevant thing I'd like to pass on, they'd like to request having dinner with the town board as early in January as possible to sort of jumpstart this idea of loosening up some open space funds for additional trails. So if open space can be early on in the joint dinner schedule, that'd be great. Joe will probably get into this, got a response from David Abelson, Rocky Flat Stewardship Council, to our concerns about 2013 flood and such. And in it, there was a request from him that we submit our questions to Department of Energy, Fish and Wildlife, and then the Colorado Department of Public Health. And I would really encourage we do that and not let that sort of get lost in the shuffle over the holiday season. Third, not surprisingly, during the holiday season, I happened to stop at Superior Liquor and happened to run into the manager over there. And I want to make sure that on the parking lot that we are keeping ownership of, that any contracts for parking are between the town and the two entities, Superior Liquor and Centerpoint. It seemed to me that they might be between Centerpoint and Superior Liquor. So I'd like to have staff clarify that.
Sure. Right. The contract I'm working on right now is a 3-party contract with with Centerpoint and Superior Liquor and the town.
Great. Excellent. Board retreat, echo everything that was said. On the snow and ice removal, interestingly, and maybe it's good, we've been front-loaded with ice and snowstorms early in the season. Usually we can go through Christmas some years and never have a big snow event. And it's testing what we did this year, the plan we put into place this year. And I have an SUV that has snow tires on it. I took the all seasons off and put snows on, and I've been slipping and sliding on some streets. I'm not happy with losing the race to Louisville on who has the safer streets. And plus, I feel like McCaslin is not only difficult, it's potentially deadly. And we have a lot of teenage drivers out there, too, who have to navigate the roundabout and the wall and all that. So we have, to me, I think, the distinct good fortune to have a really invested local contractor on that contract. And I want to make sure we give him and his employees, enough discretion to use a brain when things get dangerous and not have to sit at home and wait for the sheriff to call him or other people to call him and tell him things are getting dangerous. I think part of the excellent service we've had in the past is he was able to use some discretion. So I'd like to see us return some of that discretion to him. And I do believe we need to ratchet up what we've been doing. And frankly, those quantities don't mean anything to me. What means something to me is the safety when my tires hit that road. So that's what I'm all about here. That's all.
Thanks, Sandy. I appreciate that. That was something I was going to continue discussing, but didn't want to take the floor forever.
I think 30 seconds, the pendulum swing, last year when we looked at the budget last year, there was a lot of money that was spent, right? So in an effort to be more prudent, we pulled back. Now I think we pulled way too back, so we have to find the right balance before the next really big storm hits, so.
Trustee Dozell?
Yes, I attended Mayor Pro Tem Williams' First Friday, and I always enjoy those sessions, so that was good. Also, the board retreat, we got through all those items that nobody thought we could ever get through, so I think that shows that we're actually maturing as a board and being able to handle a lot more items. And I cheered on the athletes that participated in the Superior stocking run on Sunday. As you hear, I said I cheered them on. I didn't do it myself because I'm not very good at that kind of thing, running on icy streets. But the last thing I'll say then is about icy streets is that, we have to have a brain too when we're driving on an icy street. We can't rely on the town to make sure that everything is safe for every person that gets out there. So, we have to find that balance somewhere. And McCaslin's always going to be a problem, no matter what. I mean, you can't be out there every minute of the day. So I would just highly recommend people take the time to drive carefully and defensively rather than expecting that we're going to get every little piece of ice off the highway. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Sorrell?
Okay, echo the comments on the retreat. And the stocking run was fun, and kudos to everybody involved in setting that up. And, we talked about Saturday night's conditions. They were pretty close to being that bad Sunday morning, except that for the most part, that the people working on the race and our contractor were able to get the course runnable. And I was really impressed. I was just trying to get to the race. I'm saying, we may have to cancel this. I mean, it was hard to just walk there. You couldn't walk on the sidewalks. And so there was some good happening there. But it was fun, good event. Unfortunately, I let the representative from the Chamber of Commerce beat me. So that'll never happen again. I did attend an RCAC meeting. Again, they're working on their work plan. They're short by 3 members right now, so they are having problems with having a quorum. To get an approved work plan, I think they pretty much have to have everybody show up at the next meeting. I know we constantly are looking for people to apply, and I don't know how to improve that, but we need help on getting more people on RCAC. Finally, on the Rocky Flats memo, a good reason for sending that to DOE, CDPHE, and Fish and Wildlife Services, while the staff at the Stewardship Council gave us some background and what they thought were the answers to the questions. They are not really responsible for answering those questions. It's the entities that they suggested we write to that are responsible for answering those questions. Nevertheless, I think they gave us a helpful memo, and I think maybe it would be worthwhile to put that on our webpage. If
Is that protected? It's public, right? That response from Rocky Flats, it can be distributed?
Kendra's seen it.
I haven't seen it.
Well, it was to us, and it was to
It's
the
been
town board.
distributed to.
I'm assuming it's
Rock-
public.
Yeah. I think it's public now. David just asked that we not, he just asked that we didn't distribute anything until we had a chance to review it, ask the questions, and let him look at it. But he's already sent it to the rest of the
You can-
Stewardship Council.
Can check with the Stewardship Council staff before doing that, but,
David an email and
yeah.
just ask him.
but it's good information in that, I think. If people are concerned about the impact of the floods and the heavy rains on Rocky Flats, that's what it addresses. That's all I have.
Thanks. Trustee
Yeah,
Hanson?
I attended the Consortium of Cities meeting last Wednesday evening, and most of the meeting we saw a presentation by the Trends Director from the Community Foundation, and I put one of these in each of your boxes, and for the town manager, loaded with all kinds of information on trends, really interesting. But we heard trends on aging population, their transportation and recreation needs, There's demographic trends, housing trends, volunteer efforts, charitable giving by various communities. And she's offered to do a presentation for us. She's been doing it around the whole state, so wanted to get the board's
I read it in the paper,
Yeah.
the recap in the paper, and that's the first thing so thanks for distributing that.
Yeah.
And I absolutely think we should have her at a work session. So much of it is relevant
Sure.
to some of the decisions we have to make.
Well, she's got all kinds of data on each community and then how it compares to the county and the state and then nationwide. So I think it would be a good use of time perhaps in a work session or in a presentation in a future board meeting. So how does that work, Matt? Do you guys want to reach out to them,
Yeah.
or would you like me to reach out to
No, we'll
Erica?
reach out to them.
Okay. We also reviewed at the consortium meeting, there's a priorities or potential priorities list that we review, and I asked to get a copy of this that I could distribute to the board and get the board's input on, are there any of these topics that we might be interested in pursuing moving forward? So as soon as I get that list from them, look for this, and I'll distribute it to you guys, and then you guys can tell me what you want us to work on. I attended a Colorado Municipal League meeting last Friday, and we reviewed various lobbying efforts and some legislation. And a couple of them that pertain mostly to us is they're still working on cleaning up legislation for urban renewal. CML has participated in a couple of small working groups that included various experts in urban renewal, but also with the Colorado Counties, Inc. and the Special Districts Association. And they're trying to come to a consensus on favorable language that benefits everybody. And CML has said that if they can't come to a consensus, then CML will draft their own language to submit for legislation. And then there was a warning that there's going to be some potential legislation coming forward that will require all water providers of any size to perform and pay for audits annually for water loss and leakage. So that's something that we need to be aware of, that we might be required to do at some point. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go through my announcements. On the 30th of November, I was invited to the third grade classes at El Dorado and got to speak to all the third graders there. And I've got to say that speaking to elementary students is one of my favorite activities as mayor. It's always a joy. And so I had a great time there. On the 2nd of December, went to the board retreat, and I echo what everybody said about the retreat. It was a very good one. We did set our schedule for 2016, and just to let everyone know, we've agreed to not meet the second meeting in March, the second meeting in July, and the second meeting in December are all meetings that we're taking off. And we set our retreat schedule, which is the first meeting of each quarter. We're going to do that as a town hall, all during the year, 2 p.m. until the meetings start time and later that same day. On the 5th, went to the Count the Lights event, and just very glad that that's become such a successful event, and like to see that stay an annual event. It's the second year that we've done that, and thanks to the Youth Leadership Council, echo what Trustee Gagura said. They did an excellent job, and they're just always so enthusiastic with everything that they're doing, and it's great to see them out there. On the 8th of December, I went to the US 36 Commuting Solutions meeting in Broomfield, and I was asked to give the update to the group for the Mayors and Commissioners Coalition. One of the things that I mentioned to that group was about the mayor's concerns of lack of toll lane enforcement on US 36. And a day later, I got a call from a major with the Colorado State Patrol who let me know that they are doing enforcement, and that the enforcement right now is primarily focused on the lane jumping, as he called it, people jumping in and out of the lanes. It's, as a reminder to people, it's illegal to cross those solid yellow lines in and out of the toll lane. You got to go in and out of the toll lanes at the dashed lines and not the solid lines. So that's where they're focusing their enforcement, and probably some more enforcement there to come to look for toll lane violations. On the 9th of December, I went to Denver to a mayor's, county commissioners, and legislators reception. And also on that same day, it was Socket Tuum Day. That was the day to kind of recognize the Socket Tuum campaign. And thanks to Beth Potter with the Colorado Hometown Weekly for a nice article on that. 13th, I participated in the stocking run. I was one of the runners and survived running that, so that was a lot of fun. And also saw a lot of Youth Leadership Council members out on course, freezing themselves during the day. So thank you for your help. And this morning, I went to an RTD mayors and commissioners update meeting, and most of the discussion there centered around the new bus rapid transit grand opening, which is scheduled for January 7th. January 7th is going to be a busy grand opening day. We're going to celebrate the grand opening of the Diverging Diamond, US 36 Phase 2, which is from here to Boulder, and also the bus rapid transit grand opening, all on that same day. This, just a reminder, this is the last meeting of December. We'll not be having another meeting in December. And I wanted to also mention that the board got, or I got, and I think some of the other board members got some resident comments on the El Dorado Park design, and just wanted to mention that we did receive those comments, and the Planning Commission actually has that on their agenda for tomorrow night. I think there may have been some confusion that we had that on our agenda tonight. We do not have anything about El Dorado Park on our agenda tonight, but Planning Commission will be discussing that tomorrow night. But certainly the comments were received, and we'll certainly take note of that. And we will probably be taking action on the El Dorado K-8 Park sometime in January, most likely. Okay, that's it for my announcements. Town Manager.
Yeah, just want to ask the board to provide me feedback offline on the Buxton match list. That was in the report last week, so if you have time.
The what?
Buxton match list for retailers. Just that way I can get back to them and let them know.
So give you some direction on, like, our preference?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, anything else? Okay, Town Attorney?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay, Town Clerk? All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to public comment, and just want to say thank you for those who have stuck around from the work session. We frequently have this issue in work sessions where we just simply do not have enough time in 1 hour to allow for all the public comment, and we appreciate people staying on to deliver public comment at this meeting. So any public comment on consent agenda or non-agenda items, you're welcome to come up and give us your comments. So just give a little wave and we'll signal you to come up.
Oh, now it might take longer than 2 minutes. So Dave Taylor, 725 East Wiggins. And first of all, I truly mean this. I'd like to thank you all for your time and your volunteering and your efforts. I always feel a little awkward standing up here giving you guys a hard time, which I plan to, and I'm not sitting with you, but I do thank you. So my wife and I, we sat through all the planning commission meetings on the town expansion, town center, and we sat through the Board of Trustee meetings, and I must say, you guys, I think, I don't know quite how to put it, but one of the most contentious issues was the annexation agreement, if you recall. I mean, one of the most. So, and now it's screwed up. And I came here to be a little more vocal, but then I find a lot of you have the same opinion. So I'm a little confused, because how do you rectify this? How do you control this? How does that happen? So I'm sorry, I don't agree with your opinion that it's not worth, maybe not finding blame, but certainly figuring out what the operational imperatives are for how this works, because I strongly recommend, I strongly support putting this back the way it was, restoring it the way it was, which is, I think, the way it was supposed to be, if I understood most of the meetings I sat through. We look right out on that, and it's odd, because I would see the big graders coming, and I'd say, my wife would say, I think they're pretty close. And I'd say, no, I don't think so. I'm an engineer, I can tell. I was wrong. And then I'd say, well, we trust those guys to do that. How could they be off by, I don't know, 50 or 100 feet? How does that happen? So that's the chagrin I feel, that we put our trust in you guys and it didn't quite work. So I would strongly recommend and strongly request that you do review how this happens, and you do review the processes by which decisions are made. Because if there's another big issue like this, I don't know. I mean, it won't look very good. It doesn't look all that good now. So those are my thoughts, and thanks for serving. So there you go.
Okay. Thank you. Additional public comment?
My name is Joseph Eckes. I reside at 705 East Wiggins Street, and I want to echo some of the things that David just said. Sandy, you mentioned all the meetings and activities we had in 2013 in planning this out, and one thing that I remember is that we were going to have a 250-foot buffer, and that was my understanding. And for the people who put up the designs, that it's my understanding that buffer was supposed to be from the barbed wire fence, not the white fence, which there's a road in between there, if you know what I'm talking about. So they should make note of that, I think. Another thing is we talked a little bit about malicious intent, or, oh, did someone do something on purpose? And it made me think of a couple months ago when a friend of mine backed into my car and I had to get it repaired. I didn't really care if he meant to do it or not, right? What I cared about is, am I going to get my car fixed? And this seems like a similar situation. You know, is what was broken going to be restored? And I think that's the question. It's not helpful to say, oh, this is a bad person trying to do something. No, I mean, let's just get fixed what needs to be fixed. And I'm not sure Randy, based on his conversation earlier, acknowledges that something was done wrong. So that's an issue. And so I think the board should think about that. Was something done wrong? And if so, let's acknowledge that and let's fix it. My buddy didn't want to, pay the money for my new blinker and everything, but he had to. And that's all I really cared about. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you very much for taking my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gladys Forshey, 404 South 3rd Avenue. Well, my comments that I had prepared have sort of been blown away because most of you realize that there is this problem and there are documents to prove that it was to be done a certain way, and it hasn't. When Remington was developed, myself and another resident, professional, commented on the water situation. And of course, no one listened. We didn't know what we were talking about. Well, guess what? Today I have a water table in my yard because of Remington. So once dirt is moved, I don't care whether it is here, I don't care if it is 500 feet, whatever. Once that dirt is moved, you're going to have massive problems. And it is an utter shame, I think, that it was destroyed the way that it was destroyed. I had requested that the old railroad bed be left alone and continued and developed and included in the development because that would draw original town and this new development together. Well, that didn't happen. And, once it's destroyed, it loses its historical value, totally. So, as many times as I have seen on the CAC and as many times as I've been to the board meetings, people complain about Rock Creek as far as their houses. This problem with them, that problem with them. Once you move that dirt, you're going to have problems. I don't care whether it's in Waterford. I don't care if it's down on Colton Road. But that amount of massive dirt moved is going to affect that whole Rock Creek development. May not be tomorrow, but then it might be tomorrow because we also have the coal mine sinkings in this area. Developers come in from out of state, they don't understand. And of course, they're not going to listen to us people that live here about the fact that there is such unstable soil in Colorado, especially in Superior. The developer has made an effort to contact us in the south edition of Original Town about the development that he wants to put out on Charlene Rogers' property. That his staff has already been told that if there is changes made in the level of that property, excuse me, there's going to be massive problems because they don't understand the flooding problems that we have with that piece of property compared with the drainage systems, drainage from the other areas. So I hope you hold your feet to the ground that you get this back because that dirt was moved, which should have not been moved, and I hope that you get it back the way that it was before. It will not be the way that it was before because it's been moved, but close to the design that it was before.
Thank you. Additional public comment.
Good evening. I'm Mike Yates. I live at 115 6th Street. I still have to think about that address because it's new. Post office has to think about it too. Anyway, I'm probably one of the few total outsiders in all this. I don't have an axe to grind on it all. But I had been reading on it on the CIC, so my wife and I went over to take a look at it. And our first thought is, what is everybody complaining about? I don't get this. And we looked at it from a couple different views. And there is one area that 6 houses are backing up to the area that's been excavated. And if anybody has a case, it is just those 6 houses. And in looking at it, and I looked at it from those backyards, and we looked at it from Discovery Office Park. This is no big deal. And I would hope, I thought the gentleman over here talked about just moving the trail down to the bottom end and, living with things the way they are. I think that's a very wise solution. To spend a lot of money on this it will accomplish nothing for anybody. Just my thoughts. Don't throw tomatoes, please.
Thank you. Additional public comment.
Good evening. Jim Payne, Rock Creek and Superior resident, and also a member of the Rock Creek HOA board. I just wanted to offer one historical perspective. I was chair of ProStack and also served on OSAC when most of the work on this was being done. And I just want to point out the history. When this was first approached, in the very early part of the process, this was so flat that it was going to be covered with multipurpose fields. And there was quite a lot of discussion about that, and from residents nearby and elsewhere, because multipurpose fields are always a big issue in this town. And it was decided that it was not appropriate to have them there. It was too close to the Rock Creek homes. And the decision was made that it would be a natural space, native, natural. So that's one thing I just want to point out. It was always assumed to be a flat, continuous parcel. Secondly, I really don't understand, even now, and I'm not associated with either group anymore, but why ProStack and OSAC are not part of this process of what to do with that land. And I do disagree that I think it's dangerous to take an issue like this and look at it only in terms of the homes that happen to adjoin it. If we were to use that logic, so many of the things that we do in this town would never happen. And so I think that it's overlooked that this would have been, and if properly done, would be a valuable asset for the town of Superior, for Rock Creek, and I think most of all for the residents of Town Center, who don't have a lot of that kind of open space. I think a good analogy, I back up onto the west end of Community Park, and that's what this would have been, or could still be. Not really natural open space, but native, a beautiful place for people to walk. And I just make the point that I think it would have been an asset for everybody, and to say that it was just an issue for the 6 houses or Waterford or the houses in that area is not to give it full justice. So my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional public comment.
Hi, Sonia Critton, 685 East Wiggins Street. I just wanted to bring up a point that I don't know if this is in closing or if there'll be several people behind me to speak, but this is an opportunity for all of you because to ensure that we do the right thing, which is to put back what was promised to us. What you do behind that 250 feet, I don't care. We were promised the 250 with about a 10% slope, natural open space. We've been promised that for 15 years. We made decisions based on that. Our property values have been based upon that. Our taxes have been based upon that. We have the legal right to have the assurances that the policies and the processes are in place. And so this is a time where you guys can ensure that you use the power of the purse strings, whatever you want to call it, but don't approve anything else until you see complete reparation of what we have been promised for 15 years, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Anything else? Okay, I want to read one public comment that we received by email from Teresa Clark, and she asked that this be read into the public record, so I want to honor her request and do that. So her message reads, after reviewing the concepts for landscaping the residential buffer wildlife corridor of the STC to be presented at the work session, I am concerned that restoring the buffer to its original size is not presented as an option. The dimensions of the buffer are clearly stated in the annexation agreement of 1998, for which Boulder County is 1,000 and over 1,000 residents petitioned that the buffer be included in the agreement. Numerous residents, at the derision of the developer and the Planning Commission, are requesting that you enforce the agreement. Similarly, the town staff should be soliciting plans and proposals only, including the restoration of the buffer to its original size. I write you today to ask that you decline to approve or move forward with any buffer landscaping concept that does not incorporate the complete restoration of the buffer. Any and all terracing should begin at the northern boundary of the buffer. The terracing should be included as the backyards of the subsequent to-be-sold homeowners as terrace garden homes. Under no circumstances should the retaining walls be placed inside the buffer. I sincerely appreciate your diligence in uncovering this mistake and look forward to complete restoration of the buffer. Thank you, Terry Clark. Okay, I think that concludes our public comment, and we'll move on now to presentations. Superior Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening. Heather Craycraft with the Superior Chamber of Commerce. Two items, both related to the holidays around us. Wanted to point out for those of you who might be driving by the historic mine house to look for that truck that's all lit up for Count the Lights. It has actually been located with the help of Whole Foods and to the wonderful, I'll give the staff here a huge kudos. It was an idea to promote some kind of come back and visit us in the marketplace now that a lot of the construction is settling. So the vehicle itself, the historic fire truck, is now seen between Chuck E. Cheese and Whole Foods, all lit up in the evening and obviously promoting the Count the Lights contest that does not end till the end of this weekend. So wanted to make sure you guys knew about that, as well as it has not been stolen or anything like that. It is hopefully attracting a lot of people to the marketplace, and it is very, it was a great effort from Whole Foods to allow us to do that, so it was very exciting. And also wanted to give you just a few highlights of Skate with Santa that occurred this past Saturday to another fantastic crowd. We, of course, look forward to next year's event, which will be hosted in the brand new facility that we are all looking forward to. But we had over 400 family members, grandparents all the way down to little ones in the front of their parents being held, not on skates, but off of the ice. Santa was a huge hit, and we wanted to give you a perspective of who those are that are coming to our event. We do place ads with the cooperation of the town in the camera and invite really the whole region to our community. Again, it is part of that Shop Superior theme and bringing the development to our community so that if you live here, you can shop here. But obviously, if you do not live nearby, we would love to have you come and visit our wonderful retailers and services here in town. So we actually take a poll of those who get their pictures taken with Santa. And because I get to see their addresses, out of a hand-picked 100 photos that were taken, over 50 of those are not from the town of Superior or Louisville. So I just wanted to give you that snapshot that the efforts that you are doing to build this community and make it a great place not only to live but to work and play is definitely being heard, and we are getting great response from those who get to attend that event that is free of charge by way of having a sponsor like Dixon Orthodontics that's over here in the marketplace, as well as Panera provided all of our treats and hot cocoa. And then we had a fantastic Santa who truly, as much as the mayor likes reading to the third graders, I think enjoys that time he gets to spend with the little kids that get to sit on his lap for the photo. So I just wanted to give you, I guess, a level of appreciation from the chamber and all of the members to be able to put this event together to give back to the community.
Great, thank you. Thank you for those updates. And that reminds me, we now have a TV commercial that some of you may have seen. I heard from a resident this morning that it is actually on TV now. And this was done in an effort to try to reach out to the wider community in the East Boulder County region that, yes, we're open for business here, road construction's winding down, and come back and give us a look again. Well, it's on various Comcast. It's kind of Comcast local advertising program, so it's lower budget. It's not going to be on 9 News or anything like that. So it was on ESPN this morning, and we can send out the link. I'll send out the link to the video so you can view it over and over again if you have the desire. But
TLC was another channel it's on.
TLC, ESPN, Oprah Network, all my favorite channels. Okay, yes, so great work to town staff. We always talk about what are we doing for local businesses, and I think this is an example. It was not a very high budget item. I mean, the actors were not paid very much, and you can tell that by their performance. But I think it does a great service to our local businesses to let them know that we care about them. So, okay, moving right along to item number 11, the consent agenda. We have items A through D. Somebody like to make a motion to approve, Trustee Hansen, motion to approve the consent agenda, A through D, second. Mayor Pro Tem Williams. And let's see, are we spending money? No. Okay. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda?
Except for A, because I wasn't here on the 23rd.
Okay, that passes unanimous, but Trustee Gregoris abstains from item 11A. Okay, and then item 11E, Mayor Pro Tem Williams has pulled that. It's adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Vargas Property Services, LLC for landscape and snow removal services. Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
Yes. So we added some new things to this contract, and I'm reading here. Hold on. We added adjustments to the scope include additional maintenance service for the disc golf course, bike park, bus shelters, and the center median and north side landscape of Discovery Parkway, that road. And so my question was, what are we doing to that center median and the landscaping on the north side of that road? And I couldn't find anything in here where that was. And have we done that before? I mean, obviously, it's new. Sorry, it's new. But why are we adding that?
So it's a public road, and it's served its warranty period. And as we take over any road that's dedicated to the town, we assume the maintenance responsibilities for it.
But that road's been there for a very long time.
Yeah.
So we just took over that as a public road?
Well, it's been accepted for some time, but the WEED has continued to maintain it. And then when we were over there as part of the town center, we had a discussion with the WEEDs and said, you're maintaining this road. Or, the landscaping, the median, and the town should be doing it.
Okay, so this is the first time we've approached them and said, okay, I realize that we took over this public road, but we're not doing the landscaping.
Yeah.
We'll do it instead of you. Okay, so what are we doing there?
We'll do snow removal, any road maintenance crack sealing, potholing, repairs, and then landscape maintenance, which is just taking care of any shrubs.
What's already there?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's already there.
Okay. All right, I did not know that we didn't take care of that. So that was news to me. Let's see. Oh, and then I just have one other question that's probably, it's not related to this unless somebody else has any other questions.
I do, but
Okay.
did you want to?
I'll do it afterwards.
Yeah, I had several things about this. One is cover page, page 2, the additional $22,000 over last year, which is a 3% increase, says it's because of an increase in the overall price index. I wasn't aware that any price index had risen 3%. Is that documented? Have we checked that out?
In terms of Patrick Hammer, town staff, when we negotiated the contract on an annual basis with Vargas and started to realize their cost of bringing workers into Colorado every year, it was negotiated a 3% increase just based on the costs that they're starting to realize to secure enough employees to come and maintain the property.
So is this something we are going to have to expect every year, or was this just basically an adjustment to recognize their increased cost up to now?
This, throughout the years, the contract tends to increase by a small percentage, normally around 3%.
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to keep an eye on it because we're now up to $750,000 for this contract. So, increases of 20-some thousand a year matter, so, okay.
And we haven't had any increases in the landscape fee, which has been my direction to staff. So in order to keep, to not have an impact of increase in the landscape fee, we've actually, through the budget process and development, looked at areas where we can decrease services or costs to maintain the current landscape fee level and keep the budget as low as possible. And we're still not completely there where we do have to use reserves in that fund from time to time.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come up with a couple of ideas maybe to help you out there. Number one, perennials are now included in this contract. Before, we were mostly annuals, and over the course of 5 or 6 years, we're doing more perennials. So just for cost comparisons, when we do the annual contract in the spring, I would like to have apples for apples comparisons, because now we've taken some of that expense out of there and put it in here. So just when we have that presentation in the spring. I wanted to bring this up 2 years ago, and definitely want to bring it up this year. I believe our annual beds, a number of them are way overplanted to where they're actually crowding out each other. So I actually think less is more because they're overgrowing. The ones on Colton Road are so thick with petunias, and then they've got that other thing that sprouts, the tall thing, that actually when it sprouts kills the petunias. Anyway, I like flowers, so this, somebody's got to keep an eye on the flowers of this town, so I'm just suggesting they're overplanted. And if that word goes back to Vargas, perhaps they can be a little more circumspect in how they design those. Not so much the perennial beds. I think the perennial beds are coming along great. Over-irrigation is a huge problem in this community. It's contributing to a lot of the structural issues we have. This is not necessarily, it may save some water costs, but I actually would like us to have a priority as a town, and it's probably going to increase costs, to study our watering patterns in light of the special soils we have here, these expansive soils and the underground streams that underlie a lot of this soil. So wanted to use this as an opportunity to bring that up. the disc golf park, when I read the contract, we've had a dog waste issue. It seems from this has come so many different ways. Horizons residents may be trying conveniently use this as the backyard for their dogs without picking up their waste. I know we've gotten more aggressive about that, but how does that impact does Vargas help us out on that, or is there any involvement?
No, the town last year, in addition to contacting the Horizon staff and being more proactive in communicating through, I guess, Bell Flatiron's communications, we added dog waste stations and bags, which those trash cans are picked up under this contract, and then we've just tried to be more proactive about adding some signage. But other than having additional waste receptacles that get emptied, we don't have a contractor that goes out and picks up the waste.
I just suggest we keep an eye on that, because there seems to be some underusage of the disc golf park because people don't want to play disc golf in an environment where there's dog waste, which is understandable. I read with care the little section in here on wildflowers. I've never paid attention to it before, and there, interestingly, were totally diametric maintenance for wildflowers that border manicured lawns need to be weeded 15 times a year, and then what natural space is like 8 times a year. And so that troubled me because we've just added that wildflower component to El Dorado Park. So I want to make sure we get that weeded enough, because it's going to be some against natural, some against manicured. So let's just be prudent what we do there. And there is one other thing. Pruning takes place on shrubbery and trees up to 8 feet. The problem emerges when something has not been pruned for a year or two that should have been pruned, and it's now above 8 feet. So I'll bring that to you separately, what I'm talking about specifically. But there are certain shrubs are always intended to be pruned. If they're over 8 feet, it's sort of an indication that they've been overlooked. Generally, I think we're well manicured, but there are some spots.
Okay, great.
That's all.
Okay, and I have one more question here. In the past, we've always had a separate contract, in addition to this one, about annual and perennial color in the corner beds.
Yep, correct.
Okay, Trustee Pennington alluded to that maybe the perennials are now in this contract?
That contract will actually come before the board, right now tentatively scheduled for that January 25th meeting. But
it's only annuals. The January 25th one?
No.
Are perennials going to be in it?
Correct. That'll be, it is a little bit of a mixed bag, but that main flower contract referencing the flowers, that will come before the board in January.
And that's a mix of annuals and perennials.
And we work with the contractor to try to come up with a
and that's not in this contract?
Correct.
Because that's what I thought. That's what I understood that to be.
Okay, let me go. Let me tell you what I'm reading here, because I was surprised to find
because
it.
What do you call those specific beds that you're referring to? What are we calling those beds that get special treatment for a different contract?
We just tend to refer, we just refer to them as flower beds. We don't classify them as we tend to break things down by class of which fees we pay, out of which budget it comes from. And it is a bit of a hodgepodge, because we'll have flower beds in what we consider class 2, which is general fund. We'll have landscape fee fund. We'll have, we try to break them down by funding class.
So what I'm reading is page 8 of the contract under Exhibit A, and it says annual color installation and maintenance is not included, okay, and we agree on that. It says perennial flower bed maintenance is included on page 8. So What does
The-
that mean?
The physical maintenance will
Of
fall
the
in-
soil, or?
and
the weeding,
flowers.
the weeding.
Right, so it's a
Yeah.
little bit hard to explain, but the maintenance of the actual bed itself will fall under this contract, but the purchase and the install of the flowers themselves falls under that other
Yeah,
contract.
but the beauty of a perennial bed is over time, maintenance is more of the cost than the installation of new product.
Mhm.
So that's where I
Okay.
wanted to be sure and have apples and apples when that annuals contract comes
Great.
forward.
And then I do have one other question that does not relate to this, and it's sort of a gripe. I won't tell you what I was trying to do, but I will tell you that.
Was it illegal?
No, it was not illegal. It was. It
Hold,
could have
stop
been.
the presses
It could have been
now.
dangerous.
Don't say anything more, please.
No
Yeah.
more. I won't. Okay. So I would like to know
Get the sheriff
why
deputy.
the ball fields were locked. The gates were locked.
No, she
It
said it's
reminded me,
unrelated.
and it was recent. They were locked, and you can't get into them, and they haven't been locked in the past.
It was to keep people like you out.
Yeah, shimming over the fence. Yeah.
With some skis.
We do, for the most part, actually try to lock the two baseball fields just because the amount of damage that can occur on the infields. I will
Okay.
say that a lot of times those fences don't get locked, whether that's internally our own staff not relocking the gates or sometimes the contractor. We do actually try to lock those two fields.
Okay.
And then open them for users, and in the summertime, we'll leave them open. A lot of times, if we get a lot of moisture on those infields, it can cause quite a bit of damage, and then
Okay.
it's fairly expensive for us to go back and re-groom those infields. So it's probably more just a little bit of inconsistency on our part and not
Okay, but
keeping
they're-
them locked all the time.
They're supposed to be locked. Okay. All right. well,
Especially when people cross-country ski across.
How'd you know? How'd you know?
West Multipurpose Field's a great place for that.
So going back to this contract, I'm glad that the bike park maintenance and the disc golf have been added to that bike park especially
Yeah,
can get
it's good.
overgrown quickly. I've occasionally biked there myself, and it's a great little asset for the community. So it's nice to see that being included. I agree. So I'm glad that's been
Goat
included.
heads were appearing.
And it looks like a minimal cost to do that. So that was a good move.
And I'll just add a comment that I have no problem with putting extra money or additional increase in order to bring the appropriate staff to work in the town. And Vargas has done, at least I've observed, that Vargas has done a good job of bringing, whether through visa or whatever, but the people that they bring in, again, my observations are hardworking and always working and doing jobs that many of us probably wouldn't want to do, like 15 times a year weeding those perennial beds, which is a concern. We have to really think about perennials are not really as perennial as one might think. You have to replace those perennials often, and you have to weed them a lot. So, but if we had a situation where we're adding like $22,000 in order for them to bring the right personnel in, but they're not doing that, then I'd say we have a concern, but I think you're doing a good job of managing that. And what I've observed is that they have good workers that are diligent, and they're always working. They go to the spot they're supposed to work, and they get there and they work.
Okay, anything further? Someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion for the Town of Superior Resolution Number R-58, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement with Vargas Property Services, Inc. for landscaping services.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Williams and second by Trustee Guveris. And we need a roll call vote.
Trustee Sorelli.
Yes.
Trustee Dozal.
Yes.
Mayor Folsom.
Yes.
Trustee Gregoris.
Yes.
Trustee Hansen.
Yes.
Trustee Pennington.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That passes. All right, next is item number 12, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Waste Connections of Colorado, Inc. to provide residential trash and recyclables collection services. Town
Thank you,
manager.
Mayor. The town provides residential trash and recycling collection services to homes in original town, the Sagamore, Ridge, and Calmonte neighborhoods through a third-party vendor. We began this service back in 2008 with the goal of lowering fees to the residents in those areas of town, and I think we were able to accomplish that for the residents that live there. In 2011, per our purchasing policy, we rebid this service out, and the board at that time selected to renew with Waste Connections. Again, as part of our purchasing policy, we rebid the service again this year and had the board review the bid tabulation back at the work session October 26, at which time the board was able to narrow it down to 2 finalists, and the staff took that direction and did additional due diligence on those 2 providers, which we provided in your packet for your review. The 2 finalists were Albright and Waste Connections. And after our due diligence, the town staff is recommending that the board renew our contract with Waste Connections for another 5 years at our current rate of $965 per month for each home, with no increase over that 5-year period.
And I think that's the clincher for me, that you lock in at this rate for the next 5 years. So, obviously, I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Anything further?
No,
from
unless you
staff?
have any questions.
Okay. Questions from the board? Discussion?
I'd like to make, I'd just like to make one point. I thought this would have been a really great opportunity to bring on the little guy. And it's a disservice, in my opinion, to stack them up against someone who's been around for, a very long time and has a very, very large business. And so I was just a little disappointed that we looked at it in that term or in those contexts, because it never gives the little guy a chance. So you're always going to be comparing yourself to the big guy. So that's my opinion. I thought this was a great opportunity, but I'll be voting it down, in my opinion, but because I think it's time to have a change.
I actually was impressed with the how you did the scoring of the 2 companies, and I thought that was a really good way of evaluating the best fit. So yeah, if we can get the little guy to come in and do as good or a better job, great. But to me, it's the best company that should be in this town, giving us the best deal and the best coverage. So this is great. Thank you for the hard work.
Yeah, I appreciated the memo as well. I thought it was very well put together and informative.
The surprising thing, and you may have discussed this, I missed the meeting where you had the first discussion, was how happy people are with biweekly recyclable pickup. I expected the complete opposite, so that was a telling piece of data.
Well, I think it's also telling that we don't have a ton of discussion, or at least public discussion. I mean, I think that just probably indicates that people are happy. They're happy with where things have been, and they're happy with the direction that we appear to be heading with this. So.
And if we would have seen an increase by 35 cents, we would have had a lot of residents come down here. So to keep it at $965 for the next 5 years is great.
That's a good price. I'm just going to throw one more thing out. We are literally just keeping the exact same contract because they've given us a deal and for the next 5 years to keep it low. And I just kind of don't feel that was our charge, was to keep the same thing. I think our charge was to look at this holistically, and I don't think we did that. I think we just decided to just cave. That's my opinion. But
yeah, but the price was $11. It was $1.35 more a month.
But
I know
there's
it doesn't
other
sound like a
choices that
lot,
you
but it's
had.
just.
You could make choices. You could make a choice.
You can make choices
for
with
a
this one,
smaller
too.
bin, and
You can hear.
With this one too.
Yeah.
but it's not less pay. You pay the same.
Okay, Trustee Guerreros, and then we'll do some public comment.
Oh, I was going to make a motion, so.
Oh, not yet.
I'll wait.
Not yet.
Not yet. Get ahead of yourself here.
How about some public comment?
Jim Payne, Superior resident. I'm speaking as a member of the HOA board who administers a trash contract to approximately 2/3 of the town. And I think there was a lot of discussion in earlier discussions going back to the summer when the subject came up before you really got into the contract negotiations. I'm all for the little guy. If this were just the town's contract and original town and the few other people, I think that would be a great idea. But you have to remember the synergy with the Rock Creek, which is one of the reasons that I think your contract is as low as it is. And also, there are a lot of advantages. I attend the RCAC meetings as a liaison from the board, and it'll make communications and all that, a lot outreach and so forth with the various programs, recycling and so forth, a lot easier if it's all the same vendor. So. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Okay.
I would like to make a motion to approve Town of Superior Resolution Number R-59.
59.
59.
59.
Thank you. Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement with Waste Connections of Colorado, Inc. to provide residential trash and recyclables collection services.
Okay, motion by Trustee Guerreros, second by Trustee Hansen, and we need a roll call vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams,
No.
Trustee Pennington,
Yes.
Trustee Hansen,
Yes.
Trustee Gregorius,
Yes?
Mayor Folsom,
Yes.
Trustee Dozal,
Yes.
Trustee Sorelli.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That passes. And now we're,
Go on. But before you open the public hearing, I'd like to say something.
I don't know that we
How
can
about
have a
what?
public hearing.
Are
Okay.
you opening a public hearing?
Yeah.
No, there's no public hearing. This is just us.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a public hearing
Hold-
being opened.
Hold on.
It's on the agenda.
We have a public hearing on the agenda, item number 13, and then we were going to talk about the additional buffer after that. Is that what you were?
No, I'm talking about item number 13. I don't want you to open that public hearing until I have something to say
Okay.
before I don't want it opened.
Okay.
typically you would.
Do we have
there
to
would-
do that?
It's my understanding that there was going to be a motion to continue that public hearing to a date certain.
Right. So do we have to open it, is the question.
It can go either way. You can either open it and then continue it, or you can continue it without opening it.
Can you give us the legal ramifications of opening it as first now, as opposed to not opening it until we have the actual meeting to discuss all the information?
Well, my recommendation again is that we not discuss it if we're going to continue it, because it's been posted as being continued. Everyone thinks it's going to be continued. And so my recommendation is that we not have any public discussion tonight on anything, again, other, as I said in my email, than if there are questions about process. Those questions about process do not have to occur in a public meeting. They would be questions for staff. Staff would respond to the board. So my recommendation is to simply continue the public hearing. There's no, we can open it and then take a motion to continue, but the moment we open it, if there's comment, that makes it a little difficult.
So let's not open it.
So wait a minute. Is this ever going to be going back to the Planning Commission? Are they going to be rehearing it?
It is my understanding the Planning Commission has already heard it. So no, there has been a recommendation from Planning Commission.
Even though there's a million conditions that are going to be thrown back on and re-massaged and spitted back out.
The conditions we're working on are the conditions that the Planning Commission discussed.
And they're not the town staff conditions. So, I mean, okay.
I have a question down this thing
Okay.
now that you've asked.
I've,
Is the board now constrained by the things that constrain us when we have a PD in front of us?
Yes.
why I asked
Yes.
the question.
Okay.
Yes. Which is why I'm recommending that we not have a discussion about anything substantive tonight, but wait until we actually have something. First of all, you don't have any documents in front of you, so
Right.
that would be a better discussion when you do have the documents
Okay.
in front of you. And also because it has been posted as being continued, so if the public isn't here or most
So
of
just
them-
for edification, do we become constrained when it goes before the planning commission or because it's on our agenda?
As soon
Tec-
as,
Technically, legally, it's the date the application is filed.
Okay.
that's,
So whether we open the public hearing or not, we're constrained by the same,
Yes, exactly.
okay, thanks.
And there's nothing, we have nothing to consider, so therefore, there's
Right.
nothing to discuss.
Right.
And we can't be discussing something that we haven't even seen yet, so.
Right.
So
We have nothing to discuss.
So the recommendation,
So yes, there could be a motion to continue the public hearing to a date certain. And if.
I'd like to do that.
The only consequence of not having a motion to continue the public hearing to a date certain is that we would need to republish and post the notice. That's the only.
Right.
So that's, the reason for having it on the agenda, pulling it up as an agenda item, and then making a motion to continue it to a date certain is so that we can avoid having to repost and republish the notice. That's
Okay,
really
great.
the only reason.
And then I'd just like to make a comment about process again. We talked about process in a retreat, that we didn't want to have things that had so many conditions on it that we wouldn't know what we were looking at or what, and then we could get a list also of changes that we could actually go through and see the actual changes and make comment at that time. We have none of that yet, but that's what I understand staff is working on to get us that cleaned up, documentation of the changes being proposed so that we can actually have a good discussion and a review of that at the next meeting.
I would prefer we not open this public hearing.
Yeah, we're not going to. What I think we've
That's
decided
what
is
I'm-
we're just
that's
going to
what I'm
say,
hearing, yeah.
we're moving, what we thought we were going to do tonight, now we're going to move out to January 11th.
Exactly.
Or, is that the date? Yeah,
that's
Jan-
my recommendation.
Okay, is that, did I just make a motion, or did we make a motion?
You did.
that said that?
Trustee Gregoris wanted to make a motion.
Okay, go
So you
ahead.
can make the
Well, I
second.
made a motion, but, to continue at our next meeting.
To a date certain,
To continue the public hearing to January 11, 2016 at 7:00 PM or as soon thereafter as it may be heard.
What Kendra said.
Okay,
That sounds
motion-
good.
Motion by trustee Gregoris and second by trustee Dozell. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay, on to the additional discussion on the buffer. Now, the developer's not here, is that, were
But
they
it
going to? Were they
It
going to?
wasn't a public meeting. I mean, it wasn't, I'm sorry, it wasn't a posted developer presentation.
No.
It was us
It was a
talking
work
about
session.
a work session.
I'm just asking
concept.
because she had made a comment
Yeah.
earlier
And-
about,
When you saw the developer stop in and whisper something to my ear, I said I wanted to make sure you're staying for the discussion after the meeting. But, so I don't know if he misunderstood what I was saying. I was trying to listen to you while he was whispering in my ear, so perhaps I wasn't clear
But
enough.
why does he have to be here?
I wanted to give him the opportunity to be here. It's his
So he's aware.
proposal. I believe he was aware that, I tried to make him aware again while he was whispering in my ear that if he wanted to be here, he should be here. It's just difficult for you to give direction to someone who's not here. That's my concern.
Well,
Who are we giving direction
Yeah,
to?
that's a question.
Okay.
Who are we supposedly giving
So
direction
Sam
to?
Hartman was here, he was in the back of the room, he said they would stay, so.
Okay, but who are we giving direction to first of all?
Staff.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
We're not giving direction to them yet. We're
Okay.
giving direction to staff, who will then,
Okay, that's,
Give that
again,
on.
they've been duly advised that
Okay.
had they want to have an additional discussion with you about this, they would be here. So I don't,
I'm sure they'll watch the meeting.
They'll be
I'm
calling.
sure they'll have additional discussion with staff.
Yeah.
Yes.
okay, so what, if any, additional discussion do we want to have about this, or additional direction we want to give?
Well, I don't have anything additional to discuss. I'll just go back what I said before. I was disappointed that the company that came forward sort of had a certain take on his assignment that didn't match what I thought the assignment should be. I'm speaking only for myself, and I will reiterate that I think where we should start this, we may not end up there, but I think where we should start it, is there an acceptable restoration, a solution, an acceptable solution that restores enough to make all parties happy, and then landscapes enough to stabilize and to whatever degree was originally intended beautify, but with a underpinning of natural plantings. So to me, to start at landscaping what we have now is the wrong approach. Let's start instead with the iterations of how can we restore enough to make everybody happy. If that becomes cost prohibitive, then we're going to have that discussion. But I think that's the starting point.
I think we've got to realize that I don't think it's possible to make everyone happy. I think
I'm not trying to make everyone happy.
Well, but I just think that's the reality, is there, whether it's this issue or the El Dorado Park issue, we're never going to have something that makes.
But where do we, as a majority, stand on this restoration issue?
And that's what we've got to figure out. That's our charge, to figure
where
that out.
we got to start.
And then we've got to come up with a plan to make that happen.
I feel like I'm glad that we had 3 different options, but most of those 3 options were about landscaping, not restoration. So it'd be preferable to have 3 options about restoration first, and then choose one of those 3, and then we can, in addition, do some kind of landscaping, much exactly like Trustee Pennington just said.
I think
that seems to be the approach to me. But
I think the landscaping can come later.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I feel like we have direction on what to go back, work on, and bring back to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, because to me, the discussion about that option 1, where we bring it out further to the end of or to the edge of the 250 feet, somehow, somewhere between I don't expect, and it isn't practical to say we'll have restored exactly to the elevation it was before. I don't think any of us are saying that.
No.
I'm not saying that. But we have to have something that gives some kind of a buffer that isn't dropping off the face of the earth,
And I think we've also got to have some sort of step down. I think
Yeah.
we've got too much of a slope, regardless of kind of where it starts and where it ends. You're going to have to step it down, and I think there can be some attractive elements put in there in that step down, and hopefully all of that can be accomplished with relatively straightforward. But
not as dramatic.
No, not a dramatic.
Not a cliff.
And it's just like taking that first concept with the step
Yeah, I
down,
liked
kind of
your-
the rock
I liked your
areas holding up.
suggestion. I think that's a good starting
Just
point.
stretch that out, and bring that view. And we're not talking, they went into a little I don't know, like they were,
Yeah.
so it's to kind of put a stake in the ground
Yeah,
that
that's
isn't
an
there
artistic
anymore.
rendition that they
Yeah.
went farther out. I don't think.
Yeah, it's really more to kind of put a stamp on how you start that, and then we're going to continue it on all the way down to 36 soon,
the only
not 15 years from now. but-
Clarification I would have for the board is the next iteration of this we bring forward, no landscaping in it, and then we come back to that.
No, you have to show that you've got to have, okay, let's back up a minute. When it says natural wildlife buffer, that's what it is. It's not necessarily
That's not
a
landscaping, though.
No, I know. But so when we get into landscaping, we get into what kind of deciduous trees and what kind
Right.
of green,
Yeah, yeah.
evergreen trees. And we get too hung up on that
Yeah.
instead of creating a natural, open space environment that will have trees, but maybe not as many or the type that they present?
Just to reiterate, again, because I intend to say it at least, and then, 50 more times in my remaining years on the board. Natural doesn't mean wild.
Right.
So
Doesn't mean
there
weed seeds.
is a deliberateness to natural that there isn't to wild. So there are elements, but it's not overly landscaped. And so stuff I heard was really encouraging. You know, some walls, but not continuous. Boulders, yes, whatever. So I think they left here with a good sense. I want to hear from Joe, though I haven't heard from you. What's your attitude towards all this?
Well, I think reclamation of the buffer to the best extent possible, as we've been discussing. I think we're a long way from discussing landscaping, because landscaping, if you read the annexation agreement, wild was in there. I mean, it was supposed to be a wildlife refuge.
Wildlife refuge, right.
And
we'll bring you
not
some
wild,
plutonium.
but wildlife refuge,
Yeah.
which we don't have wildlife
So,
anymore. But.
Yeah, coyotes are going to come back,
But
I
Hodgkin
guarantee
Harris
you.
wasn't working
They
back.
haven't left, really. It's, so, and I think Jim Payne made a point, we haven't brought ProStack or OSAC into this, and at the time when we are trying to approve an FDP of the buffer, they should have something, some input on
It
that.
is.
It has been brought before
It is
them,
on
though.
both of their,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
both of their 2016 were.
Because the location of the trail is also a piece of
Right.
all of this. There were some vagaries in the annexation agreement, but honoring the annexation agreement, I think, is significantly important for a board to do. You may say it's the town and the developer are the people of interest, but that annexation agreement was, the town didn't dream up that annexation agreement. There were residents and developer coming in and agreeing on that. And just like we made an annexation agreement with Remington regarding wells, we have some responsibility now to, you know, and if we're going to change an annexation agreement, that should be a intentional, significant decision, and not something we've backdoored into by having an FDP amendment that nobody's paying attention to.
I think, Matt, you feel pretty clear that we're pretty united of what we're looking at for, yeah, more or less.
So those are my thoughts. So gradually, but not try to landscape the whole thing now, my gosh.
No, it wasn't the landscape. That's what we got off on tonight. There was no restoration of the buffer that was considered. It was the landscaping of the slope. And that's what I
That's
saw.
why I said the operative
Yeah.
word was, you know,
But to
restoration, not
reiterate
landscaping.
what Joe said distinctly, we as a board agreed to honor the annexation agreement.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
the buffer part of the annexation agreement.
The whole annexation
Just as
agreement, including the buffer.
We had that discussion, and some conversation was had about, well, that doesn't mean anything. And we said, yes, it's an agreement our predecessors entered into, and we will honor it. So I too feel strongly that we honor it. Now, there are vagaries and all that kind of stuff, but, you know, that annexation wouldn't have happened without that agreement.
I'm pretty sure.
Exactly. And the other thing is that I made the point, I guess they probably didn't hear, but the developer had an opportunity to change the annexation agreement and chose not to. So agreed to follow this one. So that's what we're doing. We're following this annexation agreement, both parties.
And also, in the past, we've followed other agreements that we've done. There was an agreement with BVSD and Richmond on the El Dorado K-8 property. And that became how Trustee Pennington entered the arena. And it was a great fight, and it was correct. It was what we needed to honor, because it was something that we had already entered into. And so board did the right thing, and here we are again under the same circumstances, pretty much.
I appreciate, I think you've got the direction. I think even the contractor picked up the direction of graduating this thing out.
And if you don't, or if you have questions, please ask, because
Yeah.
many of us would
And
love
if
to
there's
be
2 or
able
3
to
different options of
review
that,
some
that's
of the,
fine.
yeah, some of the things, or help in any way that we can.
Okay, anything further?
Merry Christmas to all.
Yes.
To all a good
Merry-
night.
Happy
Yes.
holidays.
We're adjourned. Right on schedule, by the way, 8:30.